Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, it is Crossover Thursday. You know what that means. We officially turn the page to the next team up on the schedule for the Silver and Black, and that's the New England Patriots. All things Patriots, all things Raiders, Week 6 action coming up on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, October 12th, 2023.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won, and won, and won, and won, and won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. Of course, as always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, we definitely appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time, whether it's 3 minutes or 33 minutes. We definitely appreciate that. We appreciate my man Ari. Does a great job each and every day getting us up on YouTube as well. At Ari Produces on Twitter. If you want to shout him out, if you want to shout me out, you can. At your boy Q254 and the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line 707-654-4693. Always love to hear your feedback. Won't have your calls or texts on today's show as it is Crossover Thursday. So coming up throughout the course of the show, it's all things Patriots, all things Raiders, Week 6 action on the show. That's segment 1, 2, and 3. Host of Locked On Patriots, Mike Debate. He'll join the show. We'll talk about the biggest storylines, the biggest matchups, keys to victory, and we'll even give out a score prediction. I don't normally like to do it, but with Mike, I'll give out a score prediction. Not mad at that at all. Before we get into today's show, I do want to let you know it's being brought to you by PrizePicks. Thursday's episode is always brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. So don't really have a lot of time for news and notes. I'd like to kind of do that before we get into the crossover edition, but don't really have a lot of time for that on today's show. I will say Max Crosby won AFC Defensive Player of the Week. That was announced on Wednesday, so definitely want to shout out Mad Max for his performance that he had on Monday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers, and it's going to be needed, and other guys are going to be needed to step up this Sunday against the Patriots. Even though they're struggling offensively, you don't want to be the team that they get right against. So let's go ahead and jump right into the first part of our conversation. Mike Debate, host of Locked On Patriots, and myself talking about the biggest storylines between the Patriots and the Raiders here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Here's part 1. Well, I think, honestly, the biggest storyline, and it's kind of twofold right here, it's the fact that the defense is playing really well, which has been a struggle for the Raiders for a very long time, right? But the Raiders defense is doing some pretty good things, and they've only got 2 wins on the season, but I would say that the Raiders defense is the reason why they've been able to get those wins Week 1 against Denver and then on Monday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers. But with that being said, Mike, the storyline on top of that is, where is the Raiders offense gone? Right? I mean, you've got Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator. He's a guru, right? He's that guy that's supposed to be able to push all the right buttons. They've got Jimmy G, Josh McDaniels' guy. They've got Devontae Adams, one of the best wide receivers in the league. Jacoby Myers, really good wide receiver. Hunter Renfrow caught 100 passes one year. Josh Jacobs, the former rushing champion from a year ago. There's a lot of things to like about the Raiders offense, but unfortunately, they haven't been able to show why they could be so good or how they could be so good. And that's really been the big question is why? What's the problem with the Raiders offense? Why is it not putting up the points that everyone, including myself, expected them to do in 2023? I thought this was going to be the strength of the team, and you were just going to ask the defense to just, kind of complement the offense of the Raiders, and it's been everything but that. The defense has kept them in games, and even though they've only won 2 games, they literally have been in play to win 4. And because the offense hasn't been able to do what they're supposed to do, they've only won 2. So, yeah, I mean, the storyline is, hats off to the defense for doing what they're doing. Where in the hell is the offense at right now? And I know it's funny. It's kind of similar when you look at the Patriots and their storylines.
Well, you ask where in the hell is the offense? The New England Patriots have been asking that really since 2022. If you really want to go back to last season, the New England Patriots offense definitely anemic at times, and it has been downright dead on arrival for the last really 2 games. If you want to make the argument that all, 4, some will tell you that is the case, but as of right now, the New England Patriots through 5 games have not put it all together when it comes to this offense. And I think a lot of people are surprised that Bill O'Brien being added into this mix and becoming that ironclad offensive coordinator that the New England Patriots lacked last year, with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge kind of trying to hold things together with duct tape and wire. It just didn't work. And it's not working again this year. And that is the big storyline coming out of New England right now, is that despite being outcoached and outplayed in all three of the game's phases last week in a demoralizing 34-0 loss to the New Orleans Saints, the New England Patriots offense is bearing the brunt of a lot of the Patriots fan base's anger, even more so than the defense and the special teams, which were outplayed. But it's been the offense really that is the story. And you want to talk about, dismal efforts, no question about it. This team, 156 total yards of offense last week against the Saints. 45 of that came from their running game, completely unacceptable, converting a measly 1 of 14 third down attempts while averaging an anemic 3.1 yards per play. So, yeah, we can definitely sympathize with you guys about offense, but as bad as it seems in Las Vegas right now, it's even worse in New England. Outscored 72-3 in the past 2 games. New England has to right that ship. That really is the big story coming out of New England. But when it comes to Las Vegas, New England fans, inquiring minds want to know. Jacoby Myers seems to be doing pretty well for himself out there. He looks like he's settling in to Josh McDaniels' offense. How has he changed the complexity of or I should say, how has he changed the way that the Raiders have been able to move the ball on offense? Because when he was here in New England, he was a point of, catch at the point, make the catch at the point of attack. And he was a guy that was shorthanded. He was going to come down with whatever was thrown his way. Is he still the same guy, or is he adding a little to his repertoire out there?
He's been awesome. He's been as advertised and then some. I mean, he really has. And I know that he was just about a wide receiver 1 when he was in New England. Obviously, when you're playing with Devontae Adams, you're not going to be wide receiver 1, but he acts like he's still wide receiver 1, right? He's getting open. He's not the fastest dude. You know that. Not the most athletic guy, but he finds a way to get open. He's sure-handed, and he makes the plays, right? Multiple touchdowns on the season. Hell, on Monday night against the Packers, he was the leading receiver for the Raiders. And he's just a guy that he told us in a media session in the summertime, he was excited for the opportunity to play with Jimmy G. He had heard a bunch of good things, didn't play with him in New England, but he heard a lot of good things about him. And it seems like that relationship has clicked very quickly. And so it's been good to see what Jacoby brings to the table. And the one game he missed because of a concussion, he was sorely missed. I mean, because again, Hunter Renfrow, he was a really good player the last couple seasons for the Raiders, and he's really been non-existent so far this year. So it's really been the Jacoby, Devontae, and Josh Jacobs show so far this season, and really more of an emphasis on Jacoby and Devontae. And Jacoby he's been fantastic. So he's been as advertised. I'm excited about what he can do and continue to do as a true number 2 wide receiver. The Raiders didn't have that last year. Last year, they ended up having Mac Hollins. Hunter Renfrow got injured early in the season, so he was out. Darren Waller, their stud tight end, he was out because of injury. So Mac Hollins became like de facto wide receiver number 2, and he's not number 2. I mean, I give him credit for what he was able to do, step into a role that he was kind of forced into, but he's not a real true number 2 wide receiver. He's really a special teams guy that will go out for some passes sometime. Jacoby is a true number 2, and in a lot of instances, it could be a true number 1. But he's a number 2 with the Raiders, and he's been living up to that billing. So, yeah, it's been as advertised. And honestly, Mike, I'm still surprised and shocked. And I think that probably Jacoby and his people, his representation are too, that the Patriots chose Juju Smith-Schuster over Jacoby Myers. They gave him the same money, and you would think that they knew what they had in Jacoby and they would have held on to him. And instead, they went on and grabbed Juju. And, I mean, you tell me, how's he been so far?
Yeah, you mentioned and I think that's an excellent point to bring up. And I also think it's very poignant because Bill Belichick was asked that question on Wednesday morning when he addressed the media about why Jacoby Myers was essentially offered about the same money that Juju Smith-Schuster was. As a matter of fact, Juju was offered more guaranteed than Jacoby was here in New England, according to multiple reports that are out there. Jacoby, by all indications, wanted to come back to New England, but the Patriots decided that they wanted to go in a different direction and went with Juju Smith-Schuster. It has not worked out. Juju is the type of receiver that really should work so well in a Bill O'Brien offense, simply because he is the type of receiver that is able to get yards after the catch. He'll be able to find his way under the defense and then be able to extend plays by getting an additional 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 yards after the point after the catch point. That hasn't happened for some reason or whatever. He has not developed the synergy with Mac Jones that Jacoby had in 2022. It's definitely evident in the way Mac's been playing, especially last week when you saw some of the, real just mind-boggling type of throws that Mac was making and some of the poor decisions that he's making. He's lacking that type of receiver that he can go to in clutch situations when he's down and all the chips are down. Every good quarterback has that guy that he can rely on. Jacoby Myers was that guy for Mac Jones, and essentially they took that away from him. So in a lot of respects, the subtraction of Jacoby Myers from this team has definitely been an Achilles heel for the New England Patriots. But there are players that do have the ability to step up into that role. Demario Douglas has been a phenomenal rookie. He's probably not going to play this weekend in concussion protocol. He suffered a head injury, as did Juju Smith-Schuster. So both of these guys are probably on the shelf for this game, barring anything unforeseen. So that means that Mac's going to have to rely very heavily on Kendrick Bourne. Probably a rookie in Kayshon Boutte is probably going to get the call up for this game. He's been a healthy scratch the last few weeks, and New England is definitely going to have to get something going with their receiving core, and Devontae Parker is going to have to be a big part of that as well, along with the two tight end sets of Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. So Mac Jones has got a lot to prove if the New England Patriots go out and for the third straight week put up a real terrible effort on offense. There's going to be a lot of calls for not only Mac Jones's job, but Bill Belichick's job, a lot louder than it is right now. And believe me when I tell you, Q, it's pretty loud here in New England right now. We haven't had these times here in a long time, and it's tough for a lot of fans to take.
Welcome to the real world in the NFL. Been in that New England bubble for a long time. Now you got to get into the real world of the NFL of how life really is, and calling for coaches' jobs and calling for the quarterback to get traded or moved on from or cut or released. Yeah, welcome to the real world. But yeah, man, that's wild. Even to me, it blows my mind to have conversations about could Bill Belichick be on his way out? And who knows? Mac Jones obviously has a lot to prove. But yeah, it's just weird, man. Even like I said, just as an NFL fan, hearing those words and realizing that there's a real reality there behind it is crazy to me. But here we are, Mike, as you know. So on to week 6, right? So there's part 1 of our conversation right there. Mike Debate, host of Locked On Patriots. Really good dude. Love catching up with him and myself talking about the biggest storylines. Coming up in segment number 2 of the show, we're going to talk about the biggest matchups in this game. Where are we going to be paying attention to when the players are out on the field? What are we going to be focused in on the most? The biggest matchups in this game will come up in segment number 2, part 2 of our conversation, as soon as I tell you about PrizePicks, which is the title sponsor of the show. And a lot of folks will say, Q, I'm not even sure what PrizePicks is. That's okay. It's the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. That's all. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. You're not going up against other players, pros, sharks, nothing. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's just that simple. And folks have told me that they've won a lot of money. You could turn $10 into $250 just like that. If you know your stuff, and I know that Raider Nation knows their stuff, you can win and you can play PrizePicks. You can make your selections super fast. A lot of times people put their entries in less than 60 seconds. That's how simple PrizePicks is. You can check them out. They'll hook you up with all kind of different projections, and all you do is, again, you go up against the projections. No players, no sharks, no pros, just you versus the projection. So right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL for our first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code, all one word, lowercase, LockedOnNFL for our first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Time to jump into part 2 of the crossover edition with Mike Debate, host of Locked On Patriots, really good dude, and myself. We're talking all things Patriots, all things Raiders, and we're going to look at the matchups. The matchups. Coaches coach, players play. So where are the players? Where are we going to be focused at when the players are on the field at Allegiant Stadium on Sunday? Let's go ahead and jump into part 2 of the crossover edition. The biggest matchups between the Raiders and the Patriots here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Let's get it. When I look at it, there's two that are going to stand out to me in a major way, and one is the offensive line, the trenches, right? How do the offensive line for the Raiders stack up against the Patriots defensive line? Only because the Raiders offensive line hasn't got going, in my opinion. I talked about the offensive struggles. They're only averaging 15.8 points a game, and that's not enough. They haven't scored 20 points yet in one game this season. Even the Patriots scored 20 points in the first game of the season. So the Raiders have not done that yet, and I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line. The defending rushing champ, Josh Jacobs, hasn't got cooking yet, hasn't had a 100-yard day on the ground. And, he had 60-something yards, 69 yards on Monday, but 24 came on one carry. Mm-hmm. So, he hasn't got rolling either. And I'm not talking about him missing training camp or preseason. He just doesn't have any holes to run through. He just doesn't. So, again, I'm looking at the offensive line and saying, what are you doing? Where's the problem? Why are you having such problems opening up holes and even blocking for Jimmy G? So that's going to be the first and foremost, the biggest matchup I'll be looking at. How does this Raiders offensive line play against the Patriots defensive line? And I know the Patriots have the guys that are injured. I don't think that matters. If they can't move back and have a little bit of physicality and force with this Patriots defensive line, it's going to be a long day at the office, right? Regardless of how much of the struggle bus the Patriots and their offense may be under or whatever's going on, whatever the case may be, if you can't block for the quarterback or the running back, it's going to be a long day at the office. So that really is the one that I'm staring at the most, like the trenches. How does this offensive line rebound, especially after hearing all week long that, the problem with the Raiders offense is the offensive line. Offensive line is a struggle. And they heard that last year going into the season, and they said that they took it personal, right? They took a page out of Michael Jordan's book, and I took it personal. Okay, cool. They went out and operated, and by week 5 or 6, around this time of the year, they got cooking, and Josh Jacobs got cooking. So can they, right that ship and do the same thing, follow the same script that they did a year ago? Well, we'll find out. But at some point, it's put up or shut up, and it just hasn't been good enough, right? Jimmy G, is not a guy that's fleet-footed. He's not going to run around the yard. He's not that guy. He's got to have protection. If you want him to be at his best, and even then it's still a little suspect, but if you want him to be at his best, he's got to have protection. And right now, the offensive line is not protecting the quarterback and not opening up holes for the running back enough. So that's my biggest matchup that I'll be looking at in this game on Sunday. What about you?
Very, very good point. And before I get into the matchup that I'm going to watch, just a little insight for Locked On Raiders fans. Q mentioned the defensive front for the New England Patriots. Obviously, Matthew Judon being out is a big part of that. And this team certainly felt that loss in the loss to the New Orleans Saints. Failed to generate a lot of pressure on the quarterback. That starts up front with the defensive line. New England Patriots right now, in order to compensate for Matthew Judon's loss, folks, you're going to look at Anthony Jennings, a reserve linebacker, and someone who can also play a little defensive end. He's going to step into that role. Dietrich Wise, I think, is going to probably align a little bit more next to the two interior guys like Lawrence Guy and Devon Godchow. Look for Josh Uche to be the alpha pass rusher. Definitely had a good season last year. Was second in the team to on sacks, and also the rookie Keon White out of Georgia Tech. This kid is someone that can bring a lot of power and a lot of speed when he's properly protected and properly motivated. He's got the motivation. It's just a matter for him to settle in. So if you're the Raiders and you're watching for someone who could impact the pass rush on the Patriots, definitely keep an eye on Keon White. But we're mirror images of each other this week, Q, because I'm going to have my eye on that Raiders pass rush and whether or not the Patriots offensive line and Mac Jones can hold up to that. You know that Max Crosby in that 5 sacks coming off the edge is going to be salivating looking at what this offensive line in New England has been able to provide Mac Jones, and that is essentially nothing when it comes to pass protection. Mac has been adversely affected by the pass rush. He's been off target frequently, especially early in the game. That's going to be key for the Raiders to get to Mac early because that's where he starts to spiral out of control. Sailing passes high, the pressure gets to him. That's going to lead to turnovers. And if the Patriots start turning the ball over early, that's going to be a long day in Paradise, Nevada for the New England Patriots. They have to take care of the football better than they have been. But that offensive line needs to provide better protection than what Mac Jones has had. 45.8% pressure rate on Jones's 24 dropbacks last week. That absolutely puts him under fire a lot more than he should be. It was the 3rd straight week that New England's unit has been over 43% when it comes to allowing pressure. So Patriots offensive line has to be better. The right tackle situation has to be much better than what they've got. Verdarian Lowe is trying as hard as he possibly can to get up to speed to New England's system, but he allowed a sack in 4 hurries last week. Antonio Mafi at guard, filling in for Cole Strange, surrendered a team-high 6 quarterback pressures.
Oof.
That's not going to get the job done. New England right now needs protection up front, and if they're not getting that protection up front, Mac has to make much better decisions than he's made. It's going to be a long day for New England without any question, but if he can get, like you said, very similar to Jimmy Garoppolo, if he can get protection, Mac can
Right.
start hitting his targets in the short intermediate areas of the field, and that can allow him to move the ball a little more effectively. But he's got to get the protection he needs up front. That's going to be the matchup I'm watching closest.
Man, yeah, it sounds like we're looking in the mirror at each other, right? I mean, it does. It just sounds like it's the same matchups. It sounds like it's the same storylines. You know, not being able to score. Offensive line's got to protect the quarterback, open up some holes for the running game. I mean, it sounds so similar. One thing that I do want to pay attention to, one matchup that I want to talk about that's just kind of like a side note. Devontae Adams, I know he's not 100% healthy. I expect him to play just like he played this past week. He's got a shoulder injury, but I want to see Devontae and J.C. Jackson, right? J.C. Jackson obviously just got traded back from the Chargers to the Patriots with the injury to Christian Gonzalez, which I hate that for Christian Gonzalez. I thought he was a promising young rookie for the Patriots, and I know the Patriots, they felt the same way about the young man. But Devontae had some success against him with the Chargers. So I'm looking to see what it looks like now with the Patriots, now that he's back with his old stomping grounds. Does it change any? Could that be a mismatch? Or maybe he's on, Jacoby Myers. And if he is, can Jacoby continue to have the success? But I'm always interested to see where J.C. Jackson is at on the field. It hasn't been as great as it was before he became a free agent and signed with the Chargers. But I still think he's a hell of a talent. And obviously, he's very familiar with that Patriot system. So I'm kind of looking at that one as well.
Yeah, without question. That's definitely an under-the-radar matchup that I think Raiders fans are going to like, and Patriots fans as well. JC actually did get about 50% of the defensive snaps that New England had against New Orleans last week, which was a lot more than I thought he was going to get. I figured they would try to reacclimate him a little bit slower, get him into the game, get him used to playing in the Patriots system once again. But apparently during practice, he showed enough to Bill Belichick and that defensive coaching staff that led them to believe that he was able to carry the load. And one might say, well, Christian Gonzalez is out. They needed an alpha corner, so they had to throw him in there. Jonathan Jones did a very good job at being their number 1 corner in 2022. He just came back from an ankle injury. Jonathan's got speed and he's got coverage ability. So the Patriots were worried about that number 1 corner, so to speak. They probably would have rolled with Jonathan Jones and Miles Bryant on the perimeter to try to give them an opportunity and give JC a chance to get back. Patriots definitely saw something in him, and watching the film over again, you can see that he still has that ball hawking nature in him to be able to draw a bead on the football. That, I think, is going to be where you're going to see him shine potentially on Sunday if he's able to find his routes and stay in lockstep with either Devontae Adams or, like you said, he might be put on Jacoby Myers a little bit. Although my guess is that Jacoby's probably going to drop Jonathan because of the familiarity these two have with each other. I think that'll be a good matchup there. But the cornerbacks going up against this Patriots wide receiver core, which, again, is another unit that's going to be decimated with injury, is going to be interesting. If Las Vegas wants to control that matchup, they may have an upper hand in this, both on offense and on defense.
It's definitely something I'm paying attention to. So I think that's a heck of a matchup. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's all about the trenches as far as I'm concerned for both teams. So whoever wins the trenches, turnover battle obviously is a big deal as well. But yeah, I'm solely focused on the trenches because, again, it's been a struggle. You know, it really has for the Silver and Black. They've got to be a lot better. Jermaine Illuminor, Thayer Munford, Andre James, Dylan Parham, Colton Miller, somehow, some way. Colton Miller is the one guy I know he's be steady at that left tackle position. Everyone else I have questions about. So everyone else, they need to really step their game up and perform at a higher level. But it will be fun to watch, of course, on Sunday as well. It'll be Week 6 NFL action. Of course, that's what we care about the most.
Absolutely. And Jimmy Garoppolo going up against Bill Belichick, it's always going to be fun, regardless of what Patriots fans may think of Bill right now. You know, this is one he had circled on his calendar for a good long while. He doesn't want to lose face in the face of Josh McDaniels. And he also wants to show Jimmy G a little shot of what he might have had if he stayed in New England. So bottom line, these are all fun matchups to watch. And the Patriots and the Raiders, obviously, there's a lot of synergy between these two teams with a lot of ex-Patriots out there in Las Vegas.
So there was part 2 of our conversation right there, talking about the biggest matchups. Where are we going to be focused on? What players are we going to be focused on when they take the field at Allegiant Stadium come Sunday? That was part 2 of our conversation. Coming up in segment number 3, part 3, we'll talk about paths to victory, and we'll give a score prediction. I don't do this each and every week, but with Mike, we'll give the score prediction as well. So that's all coming up in segment number 3 after I tell you about Jase Medical and the Jase case. And you might wonder what the Jase case provides. Well, I'm glad you asked. 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes to get a Jase case, fill out a simple online form, and in some cases, jump on a quick call with one of the board-certified physicians. Get ongoing care from their physicians on any treatment-related questions, doctor-created and doctor-recommended. You don't want to get caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Jase handles everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Jase Medical is simple. You go online, fill out a form, and then you get a prescription. Life-saving medications will come right to your door. The Jase case gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication and you have it in hand. Right now, get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. Again, all listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast can get the hookup. $20 off if you use the promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, crossover edition. Mike Debate, host of Locked On Patriots, and myself breaking it on down, talking about storylines, talking about matchups. Now it's time to talk about paths to victory. What is it going to take for the Patriots? What will it take for the silver and black? So let's go ahead and jump into part 3 of this conversation. Mike Debate and myself, paths to victory. And oh, by the way, a score prediction as well. Here it is. Check it out. You know, I think that they really need to make sure that they take advantage of all the weapons that they have. And what I mean by that, normally I say they've got to establish the run, get Josh Jacobs going, but it just hasn't happened. And I'm not expecting it all of a sudden Josh Jacobs to break into a 100-yard rushing game. All I really care about is that Jacobs is heavily involved in the offense. All I care about is Jacoby Myers is heavily involved in the offense. Devontae Adams, he only had 4 targets on Monday against Green Bay. A lot of that was because, Jimmy G was under pressure. He got sacked multiple times. He threw an interception. The Raiders didn't possess the ball a whole lot. And there was times in the game where it looked like Josh McDaniels wasn't 100% confident or believe in his offense to pick up, the short yardage or pick up the big play or go for it, and settle for field goals a couple times when I thought maybe he could roll the dice and go for it, but it just didn't seem like the confidence was there. Honestly, I think that they just need to take advantage of everyone they have. And look, I mean, the names, the sexy names are, like I said, Devontae, Jacoby, Josh Jacobs. Hunter Renfrow needs to get involved, but also Trey Tucker and DeAndre Carter. Those are 2 guys that I really want to point out. Trey Tucker is the rookie. He's number 11. He's got speed for days. And DeAndre Carter is a wily veteran who also has speed for days. He's a punt returner, kick returner as well. So you'll see him back there in the special teams unit. Those guys have so much speed that the Raiders have to start really capitalizing on that. There was a nice little end around to Trey Tucker on Monday night where he picked up about 15, 16 yards. He had a nice jet sweep against Buffalo in week 2 where he went for about 36 yards, but he hasn't been utilized that much. The deep ball, Mike, is not there, right? You haven't seen too many deep shots from Jimmy G and this Raiders offense. So take advantage of that speed. Josh McDaniels has been doing a lot of flea flickers since he's been the Raiders head coach. He's been doing a lot of jet sweeps, kind of some gadget plays here and there, but they just haven't been able to take advantage of what they have as far as the weapons. And this is why, and I started off the whole show talking about scoring, I thought the offense was going to be the strength of this team. Like, that was going to be their bread and butter, man. They were going to score, and they were going to score often, and the defense was just going to be asked to keep up, right? Keep up and do your job and just, compliment the offense, and you're going to win a lot of games. Like, that was, in my mind, is what I thought. Those were my words, not theirs. I thought that was what's going to happen, and it's been everything but that. Like I said, they only averaged 15.8 points per game, which is not a lot in the NFL. You're not going to win a whole lot of games. And Patriot fans are like, hey, that sounds great, as they're averaging about 11 points per game. But look, that's both offenses are struggling. So the Raiders have the weapons. It's not like they don't have the lack of talent. They have the weapons. That's why I don't think it's any excuse why they're not scoring, right? I mean, if you could look at some teams and say, well, I know why they're not scoring. Who are they going to throw it to? Who are they going to, who's catching the ball? Who's running the rock? Who's doing this and that and the other? That's not the Raiders' problem. The Raiders' problem is they're not executing. And coaches coach. Raider Nation wants to fire Coach McDaniels, wants to kick him out of town, send, everyone back, and I get it. Coaches coach, players play. The players aren't executing at the level that they need to. If they were, they'd be scoring more points, and they're just not doing it. Coach McDaniels has something to do with it. He's got to press the right buttons, don't get me wrong, but the players got to go out there and execute. So something's got to give. I don't know if it's going to happen this week, but that's what the goal's got to be. Get your playmakers involved. All the playmakers, speed, reliability as far as the catch, moving the chains, big playability, running the ball. You've got all of that. Use it. That's my biggest key to the if the Raiders want to win, everyone's getting involved offensively. I'm not saying it's going to put up 30 points, but you get everybody involved. You hold on to the rock. You have time of possession more than what you've had. You have a great chance to win this game at your house. You can win 2 in a row. You could be on a winning streak for the first time in forever, right? I mean, that would be great to see it. That's how they'd get it done. If they're going to get it done, they've got to utilize all the weapons they have offensively. What about the Patriots?
Yeah, could not have said it better. Could not have said it better myself. And that's exactly what the New England Patriots need to do. Now, in terms of talent level, I mean, the New England Patriots definitely they're scraping right now. I mean, obviously, with the injuries to Demario Douglas and to Juju Smith-Schuster, it's going to make it that much more difficult on Mac Jones to find playmakers as pass catchers, which means relying heavily on your tight ends. But my key to victory for the New England Patriots is they need to get the running game going. Ramondre Stevenson is a catalyst for this team's success. And so far, he's averaging 2.8 yards per carry on the season. Ezekiel Elliott came in to be a red zone threat, someone who could maybe catch a pass or two out of the backfield and lend a little bit of veteran leadership. He hasn't been much better. 3.8 per carry is what Zeke is averaging right now. So New England needs to be better. They have been victimized by that terrible offensive line play up front. There's no holes to run through, and they've been stifled. But these guys are seasoned enough veterans where they have to start creating their own opportunities. And Mac's going to have to utilize them, maybe even out of the backfield as receivers or maybe a jet sweep option. They have to empty the playbook and start doing things a little against the grain to get this offense going. And the Raiders might provide the opportunity that the Patriots are looking for. They've struggled to stop the run a little bit this year. They're allowing 130 yards per game on the ground. They've got a good defensive front. Don't get me wrong. And this is no disrespect to the Raiders. I love Divine Diablo and Jenkins and Nichols, and those guys are good run defenders, but they've had their difficulty this year. They were brought in to solidify the middle of that defensive line, and that's been a porous area for the Raiders defense. So if the Patriots are going to get on track, they need to get that run game going, make a concerted effort to run the ball effectively. That starts with Ramondre Stevenson. And then if you can use the run, it opens things up for play action. And that's where Mac Jones can go to work. He can hit the short, intermediate areas of the field, bring up the defense, lead his receivers under it. My listeners are probably mouthing these words along with me right now. They've heard me say this just about every single day. That's what Patriots have to return to. So if they're going to get going and they're going to give themselves an opportunity to win this game, it begins and ends with the running game getting on track, because they've been dismal so far, as the whole Patriots offense. And really, it has been. Yeah. Once they do that, then they can start getting Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki involved. And I expect them to be your top pass catchers in week 6.
And to go along with what has to happen for the Raiders to get a victory, obviously Max Crosby has to continue to be Max Crosby, right? He's coming off being the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. He got that award on Wednesday, so that was cool. He's got to continue to do that. He's got to get after the quarterback. And the Raiders, the last 2 games, have caused 4 turnovers. They've created 4 turnovers. They've got to keep that up. That was a huge emphasis all offseason, all training camp, all preseason. Get to the ball, get to the ball, get to the ball. And through the first 3 weeks, they had no turnovers they had created. And then all of a sudden, in week 4 against the Chargers, they got 1 interception. And then last week against the Packers on Monday Night Football, they picked off three to Jordan Love 3 times. So all of a sudden, they're starting to get things going. They've got to continue to get those, to create those turnovers and get an extra shot at it. If they want to get this offense jump started, they've got to continue to help them out by getting the ball back. And hopefully they get it on a short field and they give their offense a chance. Last week, Robert Spillane had a nice interception to get things rolling, got inside the 10-yard line, and the Raiders still settled for a field goal. So that's less than ideal when that situation happens. But the more times you create the ball, create turnovers, and get the ball back to your offense, the more cracks at it you get. So the Raiders need to do that as well. So defensively, the keys are getting pressure on the quarterback and creating turnovers on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the New England Patriots on the defensive side of the ball, they have to do a much better job of blocking the run. They have to do a much better job of getting pressure on the quarterback up front, with the exception of 2 sacks last week, one of which came from Juwan Bentley on the initial defensive stand for the New England Patriots, and the other came from a coverage sack, a corner blitz from Miles Bryant. Got to be much better this time around. Not even necessarily with the sacks, but get pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo. Make sure that you're keeping him off rhythm, off balance, and that's where the New England Patriots defense can try to build a little bit. But easier said than done. The Raiders are playing better ball than the Patriots right now. They got to take the advantage wherever they can get it. Q, the time has arrived. It's about time for us to offer score predictions. I
Oh
never
man.
want to put you on the spot, but we're contractually obligated to do that right now. No, I'm kidding. So if you don't want to give a specific score, I'm not going to force you to do it. But how do you see this one shaking out in Las Vegas on Sunday?
Well, I'll tell you this, and it's not with a whole bunch of confidence, but I'm going to say that the Raiders are going to find a way to win. They're going to get their second victory in a row, right? So they're going to be on a 2-game winning streak, which will be the first time that that's happened all season. And I'm going to say they score 21. They haven't scored 20 yet this whole game or the whole season. So I'm going to say that they're going to get 21 points. They're going to win the game 21-14. I hate score predictions, but I'm going to say it's going to be 21-14. The Raiders find a way to get that third score, that third touchdown, and finally break that 20-point mark. I mean, they're the only team in the league that hasn't scored 20. So, Mike, at some point, it's a numbers game, right? At some point, you keep getting cracks at it. You keep going to bat. Eventually, you get a base hit. So I'm assuming that it's going to happen. I'm just going to pick this week to be it. Maybe they create a turnover and get a short field, and that's how it gets done. But somehow, some way, they've got to get that. They've got to crack that 20-point mark. So I'm going to say it's going to happen this week, 21-14. I think the Raiders win this game. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's so dismal in New England right now, thinking about offense, that we forget that we actually have scored 20 points in a game at some point during 2023. It's been so long since the Patriots have even put up any meaningful points. But for the sanity of my fan base, for the sanity of my listeners, I'm going to say that the Patriots right the ship this week. I think there's still a little bit of a bitter taste in New England's mouth from what happened in Las Vegas the last time, which thankfully, in terms of our situation, we haven't mentioned in today's show. And I thank you for that, my friend. But bottom line, I think the New England Patriots need to get their running game on track, and I think they are going to be able to do that. It will lead to points on the board, and I think it leads to Mac Jones finally being able to open up and utilize the 2 tight end sets that really have been completely absent for the better part of the season. Get Hunter Henry involved, get Mike Gesicki involved, but it starts with Ramondre Stevenson running the football, and the adjustments that the Patriots have made on defense to compensate for the losses of Judon and Gonzalez are going to be in effect this week. Bill Belichick's back is up against the wall. Mac Jones's back is up against the wall. I'm a little more confident in the old man than I am in the kid under center right now, but I say the both of them get just enough done. I think the Patriots take this one by a final of 20-17. Not going to be easy. Las Vegas is not going to make this easy on the Patriots, but I think they do get this by a field goal.
That 17 number, that's been the magic number for the Raiders, right? 17 points, 10 points, 18 points, 17 points, 17 points. So, hey, saying the Raiders are going to score 17 is a good number because more often than not, they've done that so far this season. So, again, I think the Raiders just have to get that 20-point mark, man. They have to. It's again, they're the only team in the league that hasn't. At some point, you got to do it. So, if you're going to do it, why not do it this week against, Josh McDaniels' old team? And he's pretty successful against Belichick in his career as a head coach. So he hasn't been very successful as a head coach anywhere else, but against Belichick, he's done a pretty good job. So I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say he's going to do that one more time at Allegiant Stadium in front of the home crowd. He needs to get it done. So there you go. It should be interesting, though. I mean, it's going to be a close one. I don't expect it to be, like I said, I picked it 21-14, and I still think that at the end of the game, the Patriots have an opportunity to go down and possibly score for a tie or even go for 2 and win the game. So I don't think it's going to be one that you're feeling comfortable at the end. Who's going to win it? It's going to be one of those stay in your seats to the end to see how it all shakes out. So there it is. There it was. Mike feels like the Patriots are going to snap their little slide that they're on and get a victory and, even score some nice amount of points, and the Raiders are going to get stuck at 17, and that's that number I don't want to hear, 17. That's why I went with 21. I'm assuming that, like I said, it's a numbers game. At some point, the Raiders have got to get over 20 points. That's going to be one of the big keys to victory for me come Friday. got to get 20 points. Got to aim for 20, 21 points, 24 points, whatever the case may be. Got to get off that 17 number, man. Really do. But Mike feels like the Patriots are going to get the dub. I feel like the Raiders are going to get the dub and get their first 2-game win streak of the season. And all of a sudden, they're sitting there at 3-3. If they can do that, we may be having another conversation come Monday. So we'll obviously be back tomorrow. We'll have keys to victory. I already told you what one of them will be. We'll have more news and notes. We'll have more calls and texts throughout that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. But until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.